Good afternoon. I am Michael Picaro, Town Administrator and Emergency and Risk Management Director for the Town of Vernon. Welcome to the Town of Vernon. Thank you all for joining us in our neighboring communities of Manchester, Tolland, Ellington, Coventry, and Stafford for this press conference. First and foremost, on behalf of all of our represented communities here today, we would like to thank and recognize the important and life-saving work of our first responders and the frontline electrical and gas utility workers that have been responding nonstop to this devastating storm. All emergencies start and end at the local level, which is why locally each of our municipalities have been preparing for the impact of this predicted tropical storm, as we do with every predicted weather event. In Vernon, for example, we quickly and efficiently mobilized resources, including over 100 town employees from multiple departments to respond to the needs of our residents. Unfortunately, and in comparison, Eversource's response to this tropical storm has been an epic failure. Following the October 2011 snowstorm, previously investigated and identified deficiencies were not corrected by the utility company. This has left Eversource grossly unprepared to adequately respond to this storm. For example, Eversource's leadership failed to follow fundamental emergency management and response principles that would have allowed for a more coordinated and effective response with municipal partners. For example, the utility customers care and hotline for reporting outages failed during the height of the storm, resulting in residents overwhelming our respective 911 dispatch centers to report routine power outages. For example, the utility company failed to share critical information with our local municipalities about the status of down power lines, the extent of damage to critical electrical circuits, and providing us with estimated power restoration times. For example, Eversource failed to provide adequate line and clearing crews to each of our communities that were previously promised and agreed to in our jointly developed emergency response plans. And lastly, Eversource failed to adequately address our previously identified priority critical circuits that support life-sustaining and life-saving electrical power to our local hospital, public safety buildings, regional public safety dispatch towers, and our regional sewer treatment plant. We have a lot of speakers today from other communities, but it's a pleasure for me to introduce our first speaker, Mayor Daniel Champagne from the Town of Vernon. Mayor Champagne.
Thank you. I'm going to echo what Mr. Picaro said, and that is, we're angry. All of our communities prepared for this storm. They called for winds up to 80 miles an hour. Eversource should have been ready for this, and they were not. We were, and all of our towns that I've talked to so far were ready. And now, we're out there clearing as fast as we can, and we have one crew for the whole town. And speaking to the area communities, they're running into the same thing. One of them's probably going to tell you today they didn't have anybody till this morning. I'm also the state senator for the 35th district, which goes all the way to Woodstock, and I'm hearing the same things throughout every one of the towns. This is an epic failure, like Mike said. A lot of people are on wells. They're on wells, they have no power. Many of them can't get on or off their streets. And until the Eversource gets up there and clears those wires, we're still going to be in the same situation. We have elderly, we have sick, we have kids. I'm hoping that an ambulance doesn't have to go to one of those streets because they can't get through right now. Thankfully, we have the fire department that has been right there, right alongside us the whole time. You know, Connecticut has the highest electric bill almost in the entire country. Last month, we dealt with the delivery charges that just went up astronomically for people. And this is the service we got for those expensive bills. And I guarantee they're going to come back and they're going to say, hey, we have to raise the rates to now pay for the storm we weren't prepared for, that many people are going to have to suffer through. That is not right. And we shouldn't have to pay a dime for this storm because they weren't ready, and they're failing us every single day that they're not out there fixing these wires. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to turn it over to some of the other communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll now hear from the town of Ellington and First Selectman Lori Spielman.
We're outraged like any other town. We worked really hard to get our streets at least passable with our DPW, our fire department, and we have finally just got one team this morning to clear Penny Street. We've been waiting. We heard yesterday that we wouldn't hear anything for 48 hours. That is unacceptable for our residents in town. We are here to voice our opinion and tell us, where are these people? We also heard that they might leave our town, our one and only crew, to go to another town. So we have no idea when our power will be back on. And like they said, we have families on wells. You can't flush the toilets. But as the town of Ellington, we have our library open for a cooling center. If people want to come and charge their phone, they're welcome to. We have our EOC open, and we are also starting to provide water for residents who need it. Please give us a call at our EOC, and we will be happy to help you. But we are outraged on the service that we are getting. And a year ago, we had a special meeting, so this would not happen. And we were promised that we were going to have a representative from the power company come to our town, and we have nobody personally. It's just Zoom. So it's unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, First Selectman. We'll next hear from the Manchester General Manager, Scott Shanley.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, grateful that the temperature moderated for those folks who need air conditioning today. I'm not going to pile on. I would agree with virtually everything that's said. We worked very hard with Eversource quite a few years ago to come up with new protocols and new ways of communicating after the October storm that we had several years ago. And frankly, that has worked in other instances. For whatever reason, in this storm, it's completely fallen apart. I'm glad that First Selectwoman Spellman has a crew in her town. That's good. We had one we heard this morning, but we didn't even know. There's just no communication, and that's really the toughest part. There's two things. One is getting power restored. I don't pretend to understand how that's done, but I do know about opening up roads, and that's very fundamental stuff. And when you still have transformers laying in the middle of roads, live wires that are still laying there, which are no longer live, but they're still laying there, we can't even get people to and from their houses. So that's our frustration, and I'm hopeful that Eversource can get it together and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll next hear from the Towland Town Manager, Michael Rosen.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Rosen. I'm the town manager of Towland, which is the next town over from here in Vernon. I want to come here today and also show my support for the other municipalities who are here, and also voice my frustration with Eversource for their response to this tropical storm. A lot of what I was going to say has already been touched upon. Towland, when the storm came in, we had 83% power outage across town. We had over 70 blocked roads. We've been keeping track of the blocked roads and trying to update them as they've been becoming unblocked. But we are also a town that is heavily well water, and therefore folks cannot be, no potable water. Using the restroom or taking showers has been obviously not able to happen for the last couple of days. So it's very frustrating. Two just quick anecdotes. I've been working closely in our EOC and heavily involved with the response. I was made aware that the first day after the storm fell, that there was a person trapped in a car on wire, that for over an hour, and Eversource was made aware of it immediately through the 911 dispatch center. It took over an hour, maybe even close to an hour and a half for them to respond. Somebody stuck in a car, which it's inappropriate and unacceptable.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that we, as the general manager of Manchester just said, the misinformation and disinformation that's out there. We were told that Eversource was going to come to Tallinn yesterday afternoon. We had public works crews standing by in overtime waiting to meet the Eversource crews to find out that come 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., they just weren't coming. And that was a surprise to us. They were waiting there and they said, okay, tomorrow, we'll be there tomorrow, meeting today. So they did show up this morning. We're currently working on it, but as other folks have said, it's been very frustrating, very difficult. Our next step is just making sure that the residents are getting their basic needs met, water, showers, things like that. I'll turn it over to the next person. Thank you.
Coventry Town Manager John Elsesser.
Thank you all for letting us vent a little bit and share the story of our citizens. I've been town manager of Coventry for almost 32 years. I'd hate to say that things have gotten better with our relationship with Eversource. They have not. We spent, as you've heard, years working through a priority system that has been just thrown out the window. In our town, we had a house fire scare. Our fire department could not gain access even though the road had been reported. They had to go in with fire extinguishers. It's unacceptable. We created a priority system that was based on public safety, and they've thrown it out the window. We need to do better. They need to do better, and it goes on and on. The same type of stories. We had crews standing by. They promised us we'd have a crew out. We haven't gotten any out. I have a sewage pump station that's running on generator. Next to it is a snap pole leaking PCBs on the ground, and they don't care. They're not returning our phone calls. If that generator fails, we dump sewage into the Coventry Lake. We have to do better. There has to be priorities. We worked for years on setting a system up that they threw out. We need it back. We need them to readjust, deal with the priority one for the safety of the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Stafford First Selectman Mary Mita.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Stafford's hurting. I'm the first selectman in the town of Stafford. They're hurting. We've been fighting for 2 days trying to get Eversource out there. One of the biggest issues, we have the same issues as everybody else that's reported to you. Stafford is the third largest area-wise in the state of Connecticut for towns. They sent us one lineman. We have multiple roads that are blocked. We have neighborhoods that are stuck where they are that can't get out. One of the biggest issues that I can see along with everything else is the coordination between Eversource and their tree cutting services. We were out there last night. We had Asplund sitting in our town for 5 hours waiting for a lineman to come out. By the time the lineman came out, Asplund had timed out and had to leave. So these are the type of things that we need the coordination on, just to bring. Stafford also being so large, most of our residents are on well and septic systems. So we have a major issue. And to say that Eversource has been a major fail is an understatement. Jim?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jim Dessel, Emergency Management Director for the town of Stafford. I concur with everything our selectman said and everybody else here. I'd just like to add a couple of things. We also have hospitals in our town, Johnson Memorial Hospital. We have a priority one I put down to get that open. Johnson Memorial Hospital was blocked for over 8 hours on both sides. We could not respond to that hospital to bring emergency services in or out if we needed. This is unacceptable. They know it's a priority one. I concur with Coventry. I believe it was town also. They have emergency services were out for a person trapped in a vehicle. We waited over an hour for Eversource to arrive so we could rescue these people and get them out of the vehicles. We also have residents in our town that are dependent on oxygen systems in their homes. They are not getting the resources they need to get us out there. Our fire departments are working with them so we can keep their oxygen tanks going. Our resources are running out and they need to step up and do what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take questions.
So let's talk about, normally the response, shelters for people to shower, even have a place to go if they need to. But we're in a pandemic now, so obviously so let's talk about
Sure.
the difficulty of opening a shelter right
Mr. Picaro, would you like to take that?
Yeah, the question was about opening shelters and so forth. So let me first start by echoing some comments that were already made to make it clear to the residents of all our respective communities. We're doing everything we can to meet those critical life safety needs, providing bottled water, providing other access to water for flushing toilets and so forth for people who need it. So check with your local emergency management officials where to get that. To your question specifically, we've been working collaboratively, all of our municipalities, with State Homeland Security and Emergency Management, the Red Cross, and we have protocols in place to address the need, should it arise, for us to open shelters that would be compliant with all the current public health guidance for COVID-19 response. But the immediate concern is on the showers. If this is going to be 3, 4, 5 more days, which again we're waiting to hear from the utility company, but we're not waiting to have our plans ready. We're ready to execute. But if it ends up going that long, then you'll see in some of our communities it's already started, where we'll start providing those basic needs and access to it in a COVID-19 compliant manner for our residents. Other questions?
Yeah, I mean, most of us lived through the October 2011 snowstorm. We all dealt with power for many, many days. Are we being unfair to the utility here? I mean, really, part of it is you are going to have to, or are we not?
So the question was, are we being fair to the utility company in our assessment? And I will tell you, from being at the table, as you heard from many of my counterparts and our chief elected officials, what's different about this one, to answer your question directly, is you're right, we've been through this before, and there were lessons learned. I showed you this report that was done. There was an investigation. There were many after-action reports locally and statewide. What really makes this an epic failure is that those recommendations were not followed. It's not about the scope of the disaster. We can understand that. We understand that reality. It's the fact that the systems and processes that we put in place in partnership with the utility company that would have provided a better response to not only their customers but to our residents were not followed by the utility company. That's the problem that we have a concern with, and those are the examples that I highlighted and that others highlighted as well.
Telling us right now you're incurring thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in extra costs here. We're in a tight budget situation right now with COVID and everything else. Is there some kind of recourse that you guys can consider taking or urge someone else to take?
I think legal recourse needs to take place here. I don't think we're going to be suing, but I think legislatively we need to look at this. They should be prepared, especially with the amount of money they're taking from us. How many of you knew that the storm was coming? We did. We saw it coming. We saw it on Monday. We saw it on Sunday. We knew it was coming this way. Why weren't they prepared? And the question is, if they say they were prepared, why is there no communication between all the units? There's no communication with us. They told us that they're not going to give us any information as to when these repairs are going to be made until 48 hours after the storm. Give our residents some advice, at least some hope, telling them, hey, hopefully we'll have you guys done by Monday. That gives them a long time. But yeah, we can't allow the utility company to have this monopoly and then turn around and repair all of our lines when they get around to it. They need to plan ahead. That's all we ask. We did. All our communities planned ahead. And you figure they should have been there too.
This is a tropical storm.
Mm-hmm.
We get hurricanes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if that comes, it's going to make it even worse. Are they going to be prepared next time? That's my question. And what were we, 750,000 outages, somewhere around that amount? Okay, what happens when we hit 1 million? I mean, there was one town that was 100% at one point. I mean, that's a lot of people out of electricity. Our hospitals, Johnson Memorial, Rockville Hospital, hours and hours before they were put back online. It's not acceptable. And I heard somebody say somebody was trapped in a car for an hour. That's a long time to be in the car, especially if the air conditioning isn't working and it's hot outside. I mean, we're putting people's lives in danger here. And I think that's very important to take care of the lives and the people that we serve.